Hey everyone, me Kevin here. In this video, I'm going to explain the current state of stimulus and the state of the executive orders using a very simple analogy. At the end, I will explain all of the characters and quotes that I used because they're real. These analogies are all based on real quotes, and I'll show you all of them at the end. I'm making this video because I teach negotiations, and this analogy helps me understand stimulus negotiations much better. I also see a lot of rumors that I don't think take into account what's actually happening. Some of these rumors are being perpetuated by other YouTube channels, and I wanted to give this analogy my stab so that at least we can have a dialogue over it. Let's give this a shot. If you like it, please consider sharing this analogy. If you don't like it, press the like button and get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes via the link down below. Let's say mom and dad are negotiating what kind of bike to buy for their child, Jimmy. Jimmy keeps getting beat up on his walk home from school, and a bike would let Jimmy avoid getting beat up because he could escape the bullies. Mom and dad agree that Jimmy should have a bike. It should be a safe bike, and Jimmy will get many benefits from it. After all, it's dad's turn to buy a bike. So dad's the boss right now, but both mom and dad have to sign off on that bike. Mom wants a $300 to $340 bike because it comes with high quality brakes, thick tire treads, and it's expected to last about 2 years, and it also comes with a softer seat compared to the cheaper one. Dad says we can only afford a $100 bike and that the child doesn't need a soft cushion. A soft cushion is something that belongs on a wish list, not on a needs list. To this, mom says, okay, well, how about then we compromise and we go with a lower quality bike, a bike that'll still work and be safe, but instead of lasting 2 years, it'll only last 1 year before the brakes and tires wear out. Dad says, no, we just can't afford a $200 bike. Maybe we can just come up with a short-term solution in the meantime while we talk about this. Let's just have Jimmy stay home and study at home. To this, mom says, no, we need to address the bike. In the meantime, Jimmy keeps going to school to get beat up until we have a bike. But dad says, look, I'm not going to split the difference here. With that logic, I could have said that I'm willing to spend $0 on a bike. You could have said you wanted to spend $1,000 on a bike, and you'd expect me to accept a $500 split the difference bike? No, we don't have the money for a bike, and I'm not splitting the difference. It's $100. Maybe, just to help Jimmy with his insecurities, we'll throw on a bill for $5. So let's call it $105. But it's as sure as heck not going to be a $200 bike. Mom says, you know, it's your turn to buy Jimmy a gift. It's not my turn. Jimmy isn't expecting a gift from me. He's expecting it from you because it's your turn. You're in power. And if Jimmy doesn't get a bike, he's going to blame you, the person in charge, not me. Even though we're trying to compromise because we're in a relationship and we need each other, remember, we both have to sign off on this bike, and it's your turn to deliver a bike to Jimmy. So ultimately, if Jimmy doesn't get a bike, it's your fault. And I'm willing to compromise, says mom. To this, dad says, you know, I've just decided I'm going to do something different. I'm done negotiating with you. I have another option. I don't need you. I'll just do it alone. I'm going to buy Jimmy a new pair of shoes instead of a bike. That way, at least in the meantime, hopefully he can outrun the bullies. It's not as great as a bike, and I know that. But because we can't compromise, Jimmy is getting new shoes from leftover money I found in the mattress. To this, mom says, that's great, Dad. Jimmy does need new shoes. And if you can buy him new shoes, you could provide new shoes for him with some money you found lying around. That's great, and you should do that. He needs new shoes after all. But that doesn't help him get away from the bullies efficiently. We still need to solve the problem. We still need a bike. Dad says, whatever, I'm done dealing with you. Jimmy, here's some new shoes. Jimmy gets really excited over his new shoes and even says, Dad, these shoes are great. They look amazing. I've been wanting to practice running. This solves a lot of my immediate problems. This is great. It gets me motivated to get out there and outrun those bullies. And these will make me run faster. I'm so glad you finally got me something and we can be done waiting. Finally, somebody took some action because I've been tired of sitting around waiting and getting my butt beat. Thank you. This, of course, stops all talking between mom and dad about the bike because right now, Jimmy's happy and dad's happy. And mom's like, well, he did need new shoes, so let's see how this works. But after Jimmy got a chance to try the shoes on and run in them a bit, he realizes, wait a minute, these shoes don't work. In fact, they make his feet bleed and hurt. They're the right size, so dad had the right idea, but something about the shoes is off and they're not working as intended. Now, remember, it's still dad's responsibility to get Jimmy a bike and a solution. And now Jimmy feels that his dad should stop talking about how great the shoes are because they're not working. And instead, dad should focus on talking to mom and finally getting a bike signed off on. See, Jimmy isn't mad at mom for dad getting him shoes. Jimmy instead is mad at dad for giving him shoes that don't work. And he's ultimately mad at dad for not providing a bike, which is the solution he really needs. Even though mom was involved and is involved in the bike discussion, it's dad's responsibility to make the bike happen. He's in charge. Now, if you haven't put this together yet, that's okay. That's the analogy. Let me go ahead and pull up a flow chart so you could see exactly what's going on. Here it is. The bike is a symbol for the Heroes and Heels Act compromise. And to make numbers a little bit more relatable, rather than using numbers like $3 trillion, we used a $300 bike, possibly as much as a $340 bike. And of course, we know Republicans want a $1 trillion bill or a $100 bike, and they suggested they'd come up a bit to help with food insecurities, aka the bell, the extra $5, right? Democrats have offered, well, why don't we just go with the lower quality bike? AKA, let's pass the HEROES Act, but let's make it last less long. So that way we spend less money, but we're still providing a solution. We're still providing a bike. The bully is obviously COVID. The cushion refers to the extra bells and whistles on sort of the, quote, liberal wish list, which would be things like cannabis reform, but some partial prison relief and the SALT tax deductions. Mom is basically the representation of Democrats, led by Schumer and Pelosi. And Democrats have said if you can ban evictions and foreclosures via the executive order, you should do that. And this is like mom saying, you should get shoes. Because Democrats did say to Trump, hey, like, if you could solve problems with the executive order, do it. Like, we do need some of these issues solved anyway. And at some point, we do still need a bike, though. We do still need a broader solution. Dad is the representation of Republicans, led by, of course, Trump, Mnuchin, and Mark Meadows. The shoes are partially an example of working harder because it creates an incentive for you to learn how to run if you get the new shoes. It's a temporary solution or temporary incentive. Here's some money for unemployment, but it doesn't solve everything, right? They don't want to disincentivize you from working. Anyway, the shoes are obviously a big symbol of Trump's executive orders and the memoranda. But the shoes don't work for the following reasons. The payroll tax is just a deferral with unclear guidance. Is it 6.2%? Is it 7.6% certainty? The eviction and foreclosure bans only occur maybe to prevent the spread of COVID. It's not a blanket eviction or foreclosure ban like it was sort of sold as. Sort of like the shoes were sold as the idea that you can now escape the bullies, but they're not working. The enhanced unemployment, we were told, was going to be $400 through the end of the year, but now it's unclear. If states don't come up with their $100, does that mean the $300 goes away? And why is there only enough money to cover 5 weeks worth of this? What if states don't contribute? We've got some problems here. The student loan forgiveness helps a bit, but all of these other problems make those shoes really bloody and painful. The general fund is the example of the mattress. So think of the mattress as taking money from the general budget of the United States government to make up for the payroll tax cut. In other words, they're taking money from other places, and that's going to have to be replenished somehow because they're taking those savings from somewhere. Jimmy represents America, and the entire American economy represents the people, right? Jimmy is not a Democrat or Republican. Jimmy doesn't care. Jimmy just wants a solution. Jimmy doesn't want to get his butt kicked anymore, and it's not that hard. But mom and dad are bickering too much to get it done. When I say won't split the difference, this is a direct quote to Treasury Secretary Mnuchin saying, Democrats could want a $10 trillion bill and we could have said, we'll give you $0, but that doesn't mean we'll do a $5 trillion bill. That was like the analogy I gave with the bike, splitting the difference. The remote learning is a reference to the short-term solution that Republicans want, but it doesn't solve the problem. Jimmy still gets beat up when he goes to school. And the, quote, sign on the bike, aka both sides need to sign to pass the bike, mom and dad need to sign, both sides are needed to pass this bill. So where does this put us now? Now that we have this analogy in place, let's try to make some conclusions, because this is where the rumor mill is hard at work. Number one, are Democrats, aka mom, being pressured to negotiate because dad's shoes failed? Some people are saying Democrats are getting pressured to negotiate because the executive orders were released. In my opinion, the answer is no. In fact, it's possibly the opposite. See, because dad is in control, it's dad's responsibility to get a compromise and something done. The thing that happens in America is when things go poorly, the people in power suffer, not the minority. That's historically at least what happens in this country. The minority, aka mom in this case, is part of the process, but dad potentially gets punished in November if progress and solutions don't come. Dad's not gonna be happy if that bike doesn't get delivered, in other words. Number two, instead, is it possible that Democrats, aka mom, are trying to make dad look bad by sandbagging negotiations or holding firm on the $200 bike, the negotiated down bike? And in my opinion, the answer to this is possibly. It is dad's responsibility to act, so mom can dig in her position and say, look, I don't have to move as much as you do because if we don't get anything done, it's your fault. So that is a possibility. Now, dad had a unilateral alternative. In a negotiation, when two people are negotiating and one person has an alternative, that person's desire to keep negotiating goes away because they could go with the alternative. But the problem is when you go with the alternative and then the alternative fails, you have to come back to the negotiation, and now the other side knows that you're out of options. Now your back's really against the wall. In other words, because you blew your alternative and it failed, it makes your negotiation position weaker. Just as a real estate example, because I teach real estate negotiations, when we look at real estate negotiations, if a seller has two offers on a house and the seller says, you know what, I'm not negotiating with you, buyer number two, we're done, I'm taking the other offer, then takes the other offer, but then the other offer cancels the deal and buyer number two finds out that buyer number one canceled, buyer number two is like, looks like the tables have turned. You didn't want to negotiate when you had another offer. Now you don't have another offer. Now all you got is me. Looks like your back's against the wall. My POV. Number three, is it possible then that Republicans and Trump, aka dad, will have to bend to mom's demands, aka the Democrats? In my opinion, yes. Because dad is in power and can't act without mom, dad will have to come up in price on the bike. And this has already happened. After Jimmy realized the shoes suck, and, dad, and collectively dad, is realizing that, crap, our alternate's not working, then dad, in this case Steve Mnuchin, has already come out today and said he's willing to come up in price. Dad's already authorized more negotiations and said we are willing to bring more money to the table. That was Steve Mnuchin's quote today, because they're realizing their alternate option is flopping. Number four, some say that dad bought the shoes to pressure mom to negotiate. Is that true? This is one of the big rumors I keep seeing around, is that the executive orders were issued to pressure Democrats to make a deal. Maybe is the answer on this. But it might make more sense that because mom was on board with dad buying the new shoes, this might not be a big deal. Like she said, yeah, we're okay with you doing an executive order. Democrats said that. We're okay with you buying shoes, AKA. But that doesn't change the fact that we still have to solve the problem. We still need a bike. We still need a solution for our country to beat the bullies. And that's exactly what happened. Next, number five, did the executive orders hurt the Republican position? AKA, did the shoes hurt dad? And the answer to this is possibly. Remember that buyer-seller analogy I gave you? Now they're coming back to the table with their backs against the wall. Because their alternate failed, they have no choice but to negotiate with Democrats. Dad and mom have to negotiate. To end this analogy, if dad does not get a solid bike for Jimmy, dad is potentially going to have a bad day on November 3rd. If dad gets a new and shiny bike for Jimmy, maybe that comes with some more bells and whistles and maybe $1,200 stimulus checks already, which are already kind of small after 5 months, then dad is going to have a better chance of being happy on November 3rd. So, bottom line, expect Republicans to actually negotiate more and give more demands to Democrats over the next few weeks, hopefully within the next 5 days. Not the other way around. That's because when you look at this analogy, it totally makes sense that because the people punish people in power, not the minority, that Democrats have the edge. Unless these executive orders magically turn into some miracle that starts functioning better than it looks like they will. Because the text of these bills, the text of these executive orders, which I've broken down in detail, I'll link that video up here, does not look good. This is why I think it's incorrect to say that the executive orders pressure Democrats. If anything, the opposite has happened. Democrats have been emboldened and hardened in their position because Democrats realize Republicans don't have other options. If you've enjoyed this analogy, please consider sharing this video, consider subscribing and checking out my YouTube course linked down below. It was launched today and you can still get in on the pre-sale pricing. And yeah, if you did not like this analogy, leave a comment down below and get that life insurance in as little as 5 minutes. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.